The response for the video I posted yesterday about the Platinum Jubilee has been amazing. So I wanted to go through some of the comments you all talked about and the great points you brought up. It launched me down several rabbit holes that I want to talk to you all about. So yeah, let's get into it. But before we begin, here's the intro. Welcome to Revealing the Narc. Join me as I highlight narcissistic traits in celebrities and public figures. Everything here is in my opinion and not professional advice. If you enjoy the analysis, please like and subscribe. All right, let's start with Karen's comment. Karen says, "Didn't Rachel claim to know how to sew? If she truly possessed that skill, a small microphone would be very easy to conceal on one's person without having to fidget with clothing. Yes, it was almost certainly a microphone under her collar, and no one would have noticed if they hadn't kept touching it." From the moment they arrived, both Harry and Meghan were fidgeting with their collars, and Harry does a lot of movement with where his hand is in this video. I'll show you a couple more as we go through this video of Harry touching himself right there, and it's just they make it too obvious. She keeps fidgeting with her collar several times. I seriously can't think of any other explanation why she would keep tucking something under her collar, it seems. I mean, maybe it's a price tag. We know she's had that kind of accident before. But I don't think a price tag would be underneath a collar. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Going back to Karen's comment, this reminds me of a part in Spare that it's just so shocking to me, the amount of delulu some people have when they've been around Meghan for too long. I'm going to read you a section in Spare where it talks about this, and we can see Harry's true delulu. So in the book, there's a conversation going on between Harry and his father. King Charles asks, "Does she want to carry on working?" Harry says, "Say again?" King Charles says, "Does she want to keep on acting?" Harry responds, "Oh, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't think so. I expect she'll want to be with me doing the job, which would rule out Suits since they film in Toronto." King Charles responds, I see. Well, darling boy, you know there's not enough money to go around. So let's end the passage there. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit so that we can hear what Harry's thoughts are after this conversation happens. Was Pa, with all his millions from the hugely lucrative Duchy of Cornwall, trying to say that our captivity was starting to cost him a bit too much? Besides which, how much could it possibly cost to house and feed Meg? I wanted to say, she doesn't eat much, and I'll ask her to make her own clothes if you like. And we'll stop there. Delusion, right? Okay, one of the big things that jumped out at me is that Harry is referring to his time there as captivity. That's a little bit shocking to me. And what does he have now? Freedom? I don't think so. I feel he's much more captive now than before. And then the prime delulu is, "I'll ask her to make her own clothes." Who do you think you're married to, Harry? She's not Maria von Trapp who can take the curtains and make clothes out of them. You clearly don't know your wife, which actually says a lot too, right? We always say, how does Harry not see it? How does Harry not see it? Harry doesn't know who his wife is. Harry believes his wife is going to be totally fine giving up designer clothes and sewing her own clothes. So anyways, that's the rabbit hole I went down with this comment. Thank you, Karen. Then we have a comment from Lim Lath. Sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. And they say, "Thank you for making a point of calling her Catherine. I can't stand it when reporters and people in the media call her Kate. I had not heard that the terrible twosome were wearing mics and recording people, but her obsession with her collar raises a red flag. Harold and Fraud are such disgusting people." I absolutely love calling her Catherine, as that's her formal, beautiful name. So yeah, it almost sometimes feels like, what is that? Nails on a chalkboard when I hear people say Kate, and actually more so with people that know that they should say Catherine. And I guess the big people I'm mentioning here are Harry and his wife. Then we have A comment from Rose. It says, "Thanks for reminding us of this old memory. It should be played on YouTube once a week for the rest of their lives. They seem to have forgotten their role in their downfall from the monarchy." Absolutely. Moan says, "Fantastic video analysis and image editing. Love it." Thank you so much, Moan, for watching it. And then we have Jesus H. tap dancing say, "Love the hate on the faces of the congregation as they walked in late." I'm considering doing another video where like I focus more on how people are reacting to them during their walk into the Platinum Jubilee. I think that's going to be very telling because we already know the people outside booed Harry and Meghan, but what were the people on the inside doing? Angel says that they heard booing as well. Too bad they didn't have some tomatoes flying. And I immediately thought of Sesame Street when I saw this comment. I think it was Sesame Street, right? Where the tomatoes are thrown at, oh gosh, Fozzie Bear? Is that the name? Sorry if I get it wrong. If you all know, please drop that in the comments. Then we have user MK4 say the entitlement is off the charts. What they did to the monarchy was traitorous. They obviously think they were above everyone and the queen. Their spoilt minds just didn't think the public would be against them. They had a reality check and they are not top royals. They made themselves ex-royals of no importance and they have shown their nasty, jealous, lying selves. Bravo, user. Yes, bravo. Ricky says the second time she adjusts her collar when she steps inside, you can actually see the little round black microphone. How low are they? So let me play that video. I don't know that I see it. But yeah, let me all know if you guys see. I don't really see it. If any of you feel comfortable, feel free to take a screenshot and, I don't know how you would share that on YouTube. But I'd be interested to see that. Jay says Harry and Meghan didn't arrive late at St. Paul's Cathedral. Harry refused to travel on the coach that had been laid on for non-working royals. I cannot see the Queen wouldn't give Harry and Meghan their own little procession, especially after the disgraceful way they acted. So, for everyone who didn't watch yesterday's video, Harry and Meghan walked in by themselves. And my interpretation is exactly what Jay is saying. They purposely arranged it that they would be walking in by themselves. And when they entered, I showed you all before, they entered from a car. So they missed the bus, in my opinion, so that they could take a private car and have their own private entrance as they walk in. So this is how they end up walking in. I don't know how you could do what you've done to the monarchy, to the queen, to the people of the United Kingdom, and just walk in with your head held high like that. I seriously don't get it. But what I wanted to go into in addition to this, and I showed this in yesterday's video, is how the Sussex squad really spun this entrance. And what they say is that the queen, because they were so dear to the queen, gave them their own private procession. It says at her Platinum Jubilee, the Queen of England insisted that Harry and Meghan have their own procession. This is like the height of delulu. I know I've said delulu several times throughout this video, but these are people, Harry and Meghan included, in my opinion, that are just so disconnected from reality. I really have no words. Then we have Snappy Speak talking about her hip swivel. So let's go back to that video. There were a couple of people that mentioned like how she walks with such confidence and I don't want to call it confidence. It's audacity. She walks with such audacity. It's ridiculous. And yeah, thank you T-Bird and thank you Kinetic Fractal for watching. I appreciate it. Joe Smith says, actually think the well-phrased hijacking the event is Meghan's doing. Anything for attention, no matter how inappropriate. Just like the polo event where Meghan said she wouldn't be attending the event and then showed up with Serena Williams unannounced. The debacle with the trophy where Meghan wouldn't let it go is beyond disgraceful. That Harry goes along with all of this is unconscionable. What is the man thinking, and why is he allowing this? I mean, the man thinks his wife would have been totally fine sewing her own clothes. Oh my goodness. Passino commented the correct thing would have been that if they were so late that they missed the bus, they would not have been allowed to come to the church at all. This immediately had me thinking of what happens when you go to the theater or a Broadway show. They If there's something important happening on stage, the doors are closed. The ushers will let you in at the appropriate moment. And it's courtesy to everybody else that's there. And if you notice, everyone is already seated. The only people that are not there yet are the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, and King Charles and Camilla. And then we have 2 comments here, one from Melinda and one from Ginger about loving crows. This was so funny to me because when I started out the video, I talked about how it's Friday and I said it in a sing-songy voice. And when I was younger, actually, even like yesterday, whenever I sing, my mom says that the crows come. And I was just saying, well, since I just sang right now, if you're playing this on your phone or on the TV or whatever, crows might come if they hear my voice. So I appreciate you guys. Your comments made me laugh so much. Thank you. Melissa says, I just know that as they were walking up the aisle at St. Paul's, Meghan was imagining herself as Diana on her wedding day. Narcissists love to throw a grenade into the family dynamic and then showing back up, acting as if nothing ever happened and it's all fine. My family enabled one of my siblings and their spouse like that for years. Harry and Meghan thought they could just waltz right up to that service and everything would be as it used to, and then we're all shocked Pikachu face when they experience the consequences of their action. And I actually went and pulled the footage of Princess Diana. So I pulled the footage of Princess Diana arriving to her wedding, and I realized that it was the same church, St. Paul's Cathedral, but the entrance is like it's so obviously the same entrance. I know that's so weird to say, but there's like what, 40 years between these 2 events happening, greater than 40 years between these 2 events happening. So it was a great reminder that some things just don't change. TMTB80 says, Maxie, come on, we're going to be late. And the response is, I'm trying to get my wire on. Hilarious. Oh my gosh, so great. Thank you, TMTB. Joan says, did she just discover that she had hips? So yeah, there were a couple of comments about how her walk or her strut to get to their seats. Borrow says, I can't believe they had the cheek to turn up after the Oprah interview. What a disgusting couple. The faces of the people in the crowd said it all. Not impressed, Jan. Thank you, Burrow. And then Jinoyu, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, says, she reminds me of Sharon from EastEnders. I don't know who Sharon is from EastEnders, but if you or any of you know, please feel free to drop it in the comments. I would love to be enlightened. B. Davis says their own procession hilarious. I know. It's the height of delusion. Calm in MO says, great comment of walk of shame. I'm sure MM has had dozens of those in her life. Yeah, so when I was talking about that video, them, with that strut walking to their seats, that really is, I would have been so embarrassed. That would have been a walk of shame for me. Christine Sheridan says, and yet they haven't modified their behavior one bit. They've doubled and tripled down on their treachery and destructiveness. Absolutely, Christine. Absolutely. Hunt Club Barbie says the Queen had her own senior equerry seated directly behind the toxic twosome for security purposes. Elizabeth II was always steps ahead of the hapless Harkles. Princess Margaret's daughter, who was the Queen's trusted niece and confidant, was seated beside Markle for a reason. They were so busted. I love that you said busted. It makes me laugh. I love it. And then Animuthu says, excellent review. Never saw so many collar fixes before. You really got the goods. Thank you. There was another comment about the senior equerry. So let's look at that one really quick and then I'll show you a picture. Kimberly says, "Did you notice who was placed behind them in Westminster Abbey? Colonel, sorry if I don't pronounce it right, Johnny Thompson. He was previously the late Queen's most trusted senior bodyguard. Beside him, the lady was the former head of MI5, so the late Queen was no fool. She was keeping an eye on the pair." I found this image in a Google image search, so I'm sorry that I'm not able to credit whoever did this. I believe it's from Tumblr, but I don't have a Tumblr, so I don't know how to reference it. But in either case, the text reads, "I have read many comments on how Lady Sarah Chatto and Major Johnny Thompson were purposefully sat near Harry and Meghan during the Platinum Jubilee Thanksgiving service. They sat near them just in case they would do something inappropriate and to keep an eye on them." And then this person says, "I highly doubt that was true because Harry and Meghan are obviously adults, so why would they do something inappropriate in public?" I don't know if that's a rhetorical question. I think it is, but I'm not sure. Here's another image. The gentleman we're talking about is on the top right, and I'm also going to show you a picture of the Queen with him. What a lovely picture. I'm not sure what event this is from, but just seeing the Queen is heartwarming. Ilana says, "I love that the late Queen Elizabeth left orders for exactly where Harry and Meghan were to be seated. I 100% agree with your revealing. That was very satisfying." So what Ilana is referring to, sorry if I skip topics a little bit, but I'll go back to what we were just talking about. But when they first walked in, Harry and Meghan wanted the aisle seats. They wanted for Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, and their husbands to all move in so that the two of them could sit in the aisle. So once Harry and Meghan made it to the row that they would be sitting in, they expected for everybody basically to move one seat in so that Harry and Meghan would have the aisle. But they were told that the Queen had ordered that they would be sitting where they were actually sitting. Like, look at the amount of Tetris moves that had to happen because these two selfishly wanted to make an entrance, and everybody just has to bend to their will. And unfortunately, or fortunate, however you look at it, people did bend to their will. Meg says recording devices 100%. Melly says when he sits down, finally, he checks his mic in the jacket, which is located, I think, under his waistcoat. I think that's what he's touching here in this video. And I think, yeah, he's fidgeting with it here. I have a couple more videos where I think he is fidgeting with it. This is as they're exiting. He seems to be messing with it here as well. And I had another video, but I can't find it, but it was when he was entering the car as they were leaving. Unfortunately, I can't find it right now. Sorry, guys. Susan said they are yesterday's news. And this is a sentiment that I saw a couple times in the video where people are like, "This happened so many years ago. Why are you talking about it now?" And I just wanted to share my response because I think it's really important. I said, "Totally fair, but what happened yesterday often reveals the patterns we'll keep seeing tomorrow. Meghan and Harry's Jubilee behavior wasn't just a headline. It was a blueprint for how image, entitlement, and narcissism play out in real time. And understanding those patterns, that helps all of us spot the signs earlier in our own lives." Mary Kay responded and said, "And I believe that is the point behind your channel, detection and protection." So thank you, Mary Kay. And this goes in line with what Christine says also, that, and yet they haven't modified their behavior one bit. They've doubled and tripled down. So it's really important to keep the past in mind because we can also use it as a gauge of, is the behavior getting better or worse? Kelly Whitehouse says, "Never realized that those two were holding hands during the Queen's funeral procession. It's so disrespectful." Absolutely, it infuriates me. That was a clip that was playing in the background of my original video. And again, I'll put a link to that video in the description of this video. Gentle Breeze says, "That outfit Meghan wore is exact copy of what Wallace Simpson wore." Gentle Breeze, you got me down a rabbit hole so deep. Like, oh my goodness. So I'm doing a lot of research now about this topic, about Meghan and Wallace Simpson, and it reminded me of how in Spare, Harry compares himself and Meghan to Edward and Wallace. So yeah, there is so much to explore there. And here's an image of exactly that. It's shocking. Even where the gloves rest on the forearm, it's like identical. Leona says, "Bravo, Zara." Bravo indeed, Zara. She is just so great at focusing her attention on who she wants to talk to, which here is Prince Harry. And I'm sure everybody was cautious what to say around these two. Um, to me, it seems pretty obvious that they were mic'd up, in my opinion. This one had me laughing so hard. Carol says, "Oh no, she didn't." Well, that's how I read it, as, "Oh no, she didn't," or it could be, "No, she didn't," but I choose to read it as, "Oh no, she didn't." Okay, guys, we're gonna get into a couple of topics that are gonna have me a little bit heated. So I'm letting you all know the passion is gonna come out. Ruby says, "Hi all, genuine question here. Why would the Sussexes be wearing a wire? Even if they were recording for Netflix, wouldn't they have to get the recorded party's permission to air the audio recordings?" And I agree with this wholeheartedly, Ruby. I think that they wouldn't, if they got the footage, they wouldn't air that footage. I think there were multiple reasons for them doing this. The first is perhaps they don't have very good memory and they want to be able to recall exactly what was said. The second is I think they were posturing. They want to be able to say to the royal family in secret, like, "Oh, you're gonna take our titles away. Well, guess what? We have on recording that we can release." And this actually immediately got me to the topic of Squidgygate, which was Diana's leaked conversation, where I think it was the press that, sorry if I get it wrong, the press that tapped her phone line and released the audio. And then Prince Charles at the time had a similar type of tape. So it's not like these types of things haven't happened before where there's been a recording that has been taken illegally and has been released to the public. Now, granted, that was the 90s when those two things happened. So I don't know how the laws have changed since then. Apologies for my ignorance. But I do think it could have been some sort of leverage. And I'm going to be going back to Ruby's comment in a little bit. But I also want to highlight here MCF 5226's comment. "I don't believe the Queen ever met the female child. There was no documentation as far as records in the palace of them meeting with the child and the Queen. There would have been a recording of anyone she met with." So this is being brought up because in the introduction to the video yesterday, I talked about how allegedly the Queen met Betty during this Platinum Jubilee, this visit that Harry and Meghan made to the UK. And I said allegedly because, in my opinion, I don't think it happened. And there are several reasons why I don't think that it happened. One of the first reasons why, or the first reason why I don't think that it happened, has to do with what Judy commented here. Of course, I didn't know that it was present in Robert Hardman's authorized book, The Making of a King. I haven't read that book, but after reading Judy's comment, it seems I have to. And Judy says, Robert Hardman's book highlights the audacity of these two. Harry had promised the late Queen that they would be bringing the children, but we need a separate security detail pick us up. So it was the director of that guard that had the sad job to radio Buckingham Palace that there are no children present. So Her Majesty the Queen had to go through that day this nervy strut down the aisle, having been lied to by her beloved grandson. She was aware of the recording equipment, which is why Major Johnny was seated behind them with scrambling equipment. Everyone had been warned, don't give the duo any more content. The Queen was aware of all the fake photos of the children supposedly at Frogmore, hurting her even more. Those two count on their lies being more known than the quiet truths. So what this sounds like to me is they manipulated the Queen into getting them extra security. And the Queen, with her open heart, did it because she thought her great-grandchildren would be present. We had many other similar comments, including this one from Marilyn Wade that says, Queen never met Lily says palace. I want to draw your attention to two funny things here also. Karen Alley says Meghan's jaw was clenched big time. And Marissa says Markle was shaking her hips so hard she bumped into me. Awesome. Awesome comments. Okay, so I'm going to close this out by going through a couple of articles that are in line with the things that we've been talking about. So this first one is titled, Here's What Happened When Queen Elizabeth II Finally Met Lilibet. Her Majesty met with Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and their children at Windsor Castle on June 2nd. It is believed that Her Majesty finally personally saw her great-grandchild at Windsor Castle after the Trooping Colour Parade on June 2nd. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex brought their daughter to meet her namesake, and they also brought Archie along so everyone could reunite. So I want to point out here that this happened after Trooping the Colour on June 2nd, because I'm going to show you a timeline in a little bit. When I think of the top 5 things that Harry and Meghan have done, one of the ones that's up there at the top is how they used the Queen's beloved nickname, Lilibet. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this because it infuriates me so much. It is said that when the Queen was a child, she had a hard time saying her own name, Elizabeth, so she would call herself Lilibet. And all of her closest people to her, including her father and Prince Philip, called her by that nickname. It's a very, very special name to her. Well, Harry and Meghan's daughter was born in June of 2021, but let's rewind a little bit. In March of 2021 is when the Oprah interview came out, and we all know how Harry and Meghan said so many bad things about the royal family and their experience. A few weeks after that, Prince Philip passed away, and then about 2 months later was when Betty was born. Allegedly, Harry asked the Queen about using the name Lilibet, and the Queen agreed. I don't think that happened in the way that Harry has said that it's happened. I think if any questions were asked, it would have been along the lines of, we want to name your daughter after you. I think there was no disclosure that it was the Queen's beloved nickname that would be used. To make matters worse, I read somewhere that after Prince Philip passed away, she asked everyone to not call her Lilibet anymore because it was very difficult for her to hear that nickname without her husband there. So these two were so nasty to the Queen. And then they turn around and they dedicate their daughter in the Queen's name. This is something that narcissists do. You're constantly walking on eggshells because you don't know what face you're going to be meeting, the nice one or the mean one. And my thought is the mean one is the actual character of the person. The nice one is a mask that's worn. I've mentioned before that I think Meghan is a malignant narcissist, and I say that because she's exactly like my stepmom. And this is an exact example that shows the malignancy. So Meghan attacked the Queen publicly on Oprah, then named her daughter using the Queen's private, beloved childhood nickname. It's not tone deaf, it's strategic, and is a classic sign of malignant narcissism, blending entitlement and with a twist of a crueler edge. It's not a tribute, it's brand theft. It's a narcissistic attempt to co-opt a legacy she just tried to destroy. It's to emotionally manipulate the public into seeing the Sussexes as still connected to the Queen, and is to rewrite history so that her attack isn't seen as rejection, but as part of this ongoing royal love story. By naming her daughter Lilibet, Meghan inserts herself into royal legacy uninvited. She forces the Queen, who would never publicly object, into an impossible position, either reject the use of her name and seem petty, or accept it and be emotionally exploited. It's an emotional trap disguised as a compliment. There are also reports that came out that the Queen was so hurt over this, I don't own the palaces. I don't own the paintings. The only thing I own is my name, and now they've taken that from me. This is malignant control. It's designed to hurt someone deeply. And that, I believe, was Meghan's intent. Regarding Harry, in my opinion, I think he was too dumb to notice. Meghan probably said, I want to honor your grandmother. And he fell for it, just like he fell for, oh, she can just sew, she can just make her own clothes. Height of delulu. Let's continue with this article. However, there are conflicting reports about the photos. A source with knowledge of the situation told the New York Post that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle never asked Queen Elizabeth II for any photo with Lilibet. They were mindful of the monarch's frail health and never brought the subject up. It is said that at the time, the 96-year-old was not feeling well. We know that this isn't true. There are so many reports of how Harry and Meghan demanded that it be a photo session and the Queen said no cameras allowed. But they have to spin the story in a way that makes Harry and Meghan look good. We never wanted a photo op with the Queen. The article continues to say, instead, what happened during the meeting was that the family enjoyed a private and intimate visit with the Queen. The visit reportedly only lasted for 15 minutes because the monarch was preserving her strength for the remaining events of the Platinum Jubilee. She had to pull out of some events because of her mobility issues. So Harry and Meghan knew the Queen was not doing well. I mean, anybody would have known that because the Queen didn't attend the Thanksgiving portion of the Platinum Jubilee. And I don't think she would have missed that for anything. So everyone in the whole world, if they were following, I think would have recognized that the Queen probably isn't doing well. That's why she missed this event. So they had that knowledge, and allegedly they visited with her. So they saw that she was frail. And this is important because I'm going to show you a timeline next. So allegedly, this article we just read said that the meeting happened between the Queen and Harry and Meghan after Trooping the Color. That's on Thursday, June 2nd. The service of Thanksgiving at St. Paul's happened the following day, Friday, June 3rd. So if this timeline is correct, and if this meeting happened on June 2nd, these two selfish, horrible people manipulated everything so that they would have their own private walk into St. Paul's, tried to throw their weight around so they would have better seats, and went in with microphones, having the knowledge that the Queen wasn't doing well. I used to empathize with Harry because I was married to a narcissist as well. But it's getting harder and harder to justify it the more I start learning about their disgusting behavior. This is heavy, guys. It's heavy. Here is an example of an article where the Queen refused to let them photograph her meeting with Lilibet. And the thing I want to point out from this article is this section. It says the Queen was apparently concerned about how a professional photograph might be used afterwards, including being shared with US television networks. Whether this means the Sussexes were allowed to take, like, iPhone pictures for private use remains a mystery. You have to ask yourself, why would a great grandmother be worried about that? She knew the purpose was to monetize it. And in the same article, it says their photographers weren't the only camera that didn't fly during the Jubilee. The Sussexes also couldn't bring Netflix cameras to film footage from the weekend for their documentary due to a clause included in the Sandringham Agreement they signed in order to leave their roles as senior royals. And this is where I'm coming back to Ruby's comment. I don't think they would have used the footage directly in the documentary. And I really think their reasons were twofold. Number one, they probably have bad memories, so they wanted to remember every single thing that happened. And number two, they wanted to be able, in their head, to have some form of leverage against the family. Wow, you guys, this ending was really heavy, and I knew it was going to be, but I didn't realize it would be this heavy. I got really worked up about it. So I apologize that I took this really fun video and turned it into something really serious. I think these are things that need to be said and can't be forgotten. It's really when you start putting the puzzle pieces together that you see how awful, how sick their behavior was. Because if you just read the article that they were booed when they left the Platinum Jubilee, or they missed the bus so they could walk in by themselves, or they wanted photographers to take pictures of them meeting the Queen. Reading these independently does not give you the full picture. And I have to tell you, before I made the video from yesterday and this video, I did not know the full picture. I'm sure there's also so much more there is to uncover about this. For example, the angle of why did Meghan wear something that's so similar to what Wallace Simpson wore? What was the purpose of that? And also, what about this alleged birthday celebration they had for Betty that they claim happened while they were in the UK? These are all topics for other videos. And I'm going to end this video here. So if this was interesting to you, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you'll know every time I drop a new video. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.